Time has expired. I now recognize Representative Chrissy Houlahan of Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary. I know that most Americans are still supportive of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and I also know that the airlift was a remarkable and historic in its scale. But I do think that this process was not without its missteps, and now we do have some opportunities from which to draw on these lessons and hopefully have the ability to together steer ourselves more positively into the future. So I do have some questions, and I think it's important to point out that it's appropriate within Congress's constitutional role and responsibility of oversight to ask these questions. I really do this in the spirit of my responsibility, not in the spirit of whether a D or an R is in the White House. In the 20 years that this war has happened, there has been ample opportunity to spread blame all around. And I can also say that both R's and D's on this committee have personally served themselves, and I can personally understand the pain and anxiety that many of us are feeling during this very important and contentious discussion. Our pain and anxiety knows no party, and no party owns patriotism. That said, here is my first question, Mr. Secretary. In July, the U.S. military left Bagram airfield, and on August 15th, the State Department made the decision to close the embassy chancery and evacuate to the airport. What drove that decision to withdraw from Bagram and a few weeks later to close the embassy? Sir, I know that you reflected that it was largely the DOD's decision to vacate Bagram, but it certainly was your decision and responsibility with the embassy.
Thank you, and I very much appreciate the spirit with which you're asking these very important questions, as well as the oversight role that Congress plays. It is central to our system. With regard to Bagram, this was part of the drawdown plan for the military. Again, the base was handed over to the Afghan National Security and Defense Forces, I believe, on July 2nd. I leave it to my colleagues to get into the details of that, but in essence, as we were drawing down, force protection is job one. It would have taken very significant forces remaining in place to defend Bagram. And in terms of departures from Afghanistan, and this was before the collapse of the government and the security forces, the airport in Kabul was a much better place to do that from. Bagram, as you know, is about 40 miles outside of the city, so getting there is a challenge.
Sir. And
beyond that, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If it's okay, I would like to kind of lead into my next question because I think it relates to that. I do want to understand something that many of us remain unclear on, which is the timelines that were laid out both publicly and privately for withdrawal, and they may have something to do with the decision to vacate Bagram and the embassy. I empathize that you were given an agenda and not necessarily a plan from the prior administration, but as far as I can tell, September 11th was announced publicly as a date certain by which we needed to be gone, as was August 31st later on. And I was always led to believe that telegraphing, let alone speaking out loud, the dates that you were planning on doing things was something you should not signal to your enemy. Why did we do that? Can you help me understand that? And was that somehow, does that somehow drive the Bagram decision and the embassy decision?
Sure. No, this all goes to the fact that, as we've been discussing earlier, we inherited an agreement that required us to leave Afghanistan by May 1st. And had we not made good on that agreement, then we would have seen a resumption of the war with Taliban forces firing once again on us and our partners. And seeking to take over the cities, which would have required us to put in more forces and restart the war. But having said that,
there was some magic to September 11th that I just don't understand. So you know,
so we in doing our work on how to deal with May 1st, the military told us that in order to, as they put it, retrograde in an orderly and safe manner, they needed 3 to 4 months to do it the right way. And so the president took a risk in pushing past the May 1st deadline in terms of actually getting everyone out, but making it clear that we were doing that to meet the commitment that his predecessor had made. And you get to September by those 3 to 4 months that the military said it needed to retrograde in a safe and orderly manner.
And sir, with my remaining time, once September 11th had been decided, it was also clear that we were on a much more rapid path than September 11th, which left us, we pulled out troops that could have been around longer, and then we ended up having to bring back troops. was that, why did we decide a date and then escalate the date and make it even more rapid? And I'm sorry, I only have 7 seconds of my time, so I'll have to take that.
Sure, I'm happy to come back to you, but in essence, everything changed when the government and the Afghan National Security Forces collapsed over 11 days in August. And then we moved into an emergency evacuation situation. And what was critical in order to do that, to get American citizens out, to get Afghans at risk out, was to make sure that we had control of the airport. And to do that as effectively as possible, the president had forces on standby for exactly this kind of emergency or contingency to make sure that we could go in, secure the airport, which we did in 72 hours, and get flights moving out of the airport. So that's why those forces on standby went back in to secure the airport so we could do the evacuation.
Sure,
Thank
I've
you.
run out of time. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. And now, again,